Welcome everyone to the second session of Horses for Courses by Dom Seneque. We thank Dom very much for giving us his time for this session today, and we really hope that you'll enjoy it. Over to you, Dom.
Thank you, and I'll just see if I can get my webcam up and running so we can see. 1 second, and hopefully that works. Here we go. Hello, Ian, Kim, Lynn, and Melanie. Where are you all from? Are you all from different places? Perhaps you might just jot a quick Sydney, US, Kansas. Ooh. Wow, that's a good mix. And Melbourne, excellent. Well, thank you for making the time to join us in the various time zones. Yes, I like this photo of these horses. It's just a bizarre one. They all look like they're characters on their own. But yeah, horses for courses. Because I suppose just a quick background about myself. I've been playing and working around with Moodle for many years now, probably 8, 9 years. I've been with Pukunui, and we've been doing lots of Moodle services. And we talk to a lot of clients, and so we had a number of new clients always coming up to us and talking to us about course formats. And so even had one client come up to us and throw some money at us and say, "Look, please demonstrate for us the differences in the types of course formats that there are." So I was able to use that as the springboard for this presentation. So hopefully I'll also be able to share my screen with you. I'll just quickly go through the introductions. So basically I'll be demonstrating what the standard course formats are, and then following that I'll get some third-party course formats, because there are lots of third-party ones out there donated by the community at Moodle plugins, so you can get them. And finally, should time permit, we will have a look at installing a third-party plugin for those that have never done that before. The standard plugins that we will be covering, these are the ones that come out of the box in Moodle, excuse me, is the topics format, the single activity, the weekly and social formats. And then of the third-party course formats, we'll be covering the grid view, the one topic view, the collapsed topic, flexible, and buttons. Now, before I go much further, I'd like to say the views of and the opinions of this presentation are the presenter's own and do not reflect the views of smarter people, because I'm sure people out there would know more than me about something. But secondly, just a quick question to the audience. How many of you have played with course formats? Or do you just normally go with the generic one that Moodle puts out when you open up a course? Say yes if you've played around with course formats, or no if you haven't. Okay. And if you have played around, how many have installed or downloaded third-party course formats and played around with them? I suppose if you got the Collapse one, you downloaded that one. Okay, so just good to know, because then obviously this presentation will be of some use to you guys. All right, moving on. First place you can start is, and up the top of my presentation you'll see this presentation was done on Moodle 3.2, and you'll see that I've got the breadcrumb navigation of where to go to get these things. So if you want to know, you go to the dashboard, site administration, courses, and then course default settings, and you get the default settings page. Now, the reason I've gone there is every Moodle site has got course default settings, and typically the course format is set to weekly by Moodle. Topic is probably a better one to set that. So if you're an administrator of the site or have some influence on the site and are able to set that, it's good to know that set it something that you think your other course creators would typically want to go. Because I know for me, whenever I used to go and create a new course and I'd say I wanted 10 sections, by default it was the weekly section, and all of a sudden I had 10 weeks of data up there and I had to go in there and change it. So if you get an opportunity to set that to one of the course formats that you think is going to be most liked by the course creators, that would be a good place to start. Okay. Well, basically what I was intending to do now is go through each of the course formats, and typically we would highlight within the course settings page the course format section, which is the settings, because even for different types of course formats, the settings change from course format to course format. With the topics format, I reckon topics is the generic one. It's the one that's fairly standardly used and gives lots of options. Basically, in here you've got 4 parameters. You've got the format, the number of sections you want in your course, and what are you going to do with hidden sections, and then the course layout. So in my next slide, we will show you the difference in the hidden section. If you choose hidden sections are shown in collapsed form, what happens is, I don't know if you can see there in the grey, but that's the hidden section name that's there. If you say hide the section completely or make it invisible, then obviously it doesn't appear there at all. So these options actually, this hidden section options appears in a number of different format types too, not just the topic format. It appears in a couple of other ones you'll see as we go through this demonstration. The only other setting is whether you want to show in the course layout, show all sections on the one page, which is this huge scroll of death, or show one section per page. And I might demonstrate that for you guys as well. Hopefully my screen sharing will work when I go through this. Screen sharing has closed unexpectedly, as usual. It didn't work, but I will quickly download that again and hopefully get that running, because I've created a Moodle site in 3.2, and I've put all these samples on there. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you the URL and the credentials, the logon and password to go in there if you wanted to go in there and have a look yourself. Now, what I've decided to do is I've got one generic course, and that course was one that was originally provided from the client I mentioned that who wanted us to. There we go. So my sharing has, hopefully my screen sharing is working. Yes. So there's the demo site, and you're welcome to log in later on and have a play if you want to. I've got 2 menus. I've got one is the course formats, and you can see each of them there. And I don't think you'll have access to this one because I think I've made you all students, but this is just the settings, so I can jump to the settings fairly quickly for myself. But in looking at the topic section first, which is the generic one in Moodle, hopefully you guys are seeing this, because I can't see the chat while I've got the screen up. So let me just go back, make sure, yep, everyone's seeing it. Good, excellent. This is the generic course that we started with, and just to lay it out, nothing special, but we always recommend it to our client. If you're going to do a course, it's always good to have a nice welcome message up the top and a photo of someone handsome. Doesn't really matter who. And if you've got a YouTube in there as well, that's even nicer. So we've got a little YouTube of Pukunui that's doing funny things if it ever came down. Okay, maybe not, we'll stop that. And then obviously you've got the course content. Now you have the section name, and then we always recommend also to put a section summary or header or introduction, whatever you want to call it, which is just a brief description of what the section is about, followed by the activities and resources for that section. And you can also have subsections. We've got a subsection here, which is part of the main section, and that contains the related documents. And then we've got a new section with a quick description of what that section is, followed by the activities for that section and so forth. But as you can notice with the topics view, it does become a bit of a scroll of death as we're going down the page trying to get to the bottom of it. And this is a small course. This has only got 4 sections and a couple of activities. But as you can tell, you can scroll right down, and we've got activity completion activated for this. Now, one of the settings in Moodle for this topic, which I'll now demonstrate. Oh, this thing's now working, is it? Okay. I'll just go to the settings page.
Sharing has dropped out.
And go down to course. I'll share it. Oh, has it? Oh, okay. Sharing has dropped out. That's a shame. I'll try and get back. Thanks for letting me know. But yeah, while that works. So one of the sections here, when you say show one section per page, what it does do, it still gives you all the sections on the landing page for the course, but only shows the section name and the summary. So, which is quite handy. I would like to have demonstrated that to you. Maybe I will. I'll try and do that one more time. Hopefully we don't. We've got a storm. I don't know if that affects anything, but we've got a big storm out here, so it was just bucketing down with rain just before the session started, and Wendy was having difficulty hearing me. Let me just see if I can get this back up again quickly, if possible. Thinking about it. In any, here it comes. Sorry. Okay. Hopefully that screen's come back. Just give me a verbal okay on the speaker if it is, because I can't see the chat. And basically the course working. Excellent, thank you.
But you might
and the
like
course
to
format.
turn off your video.
Oh yes, okay, good idea. Don't need that. I don't like the video anyway. How do I do that? This one. Lovely. Back to the course. You've got the course format. As I said, the hidden section is invisible. I would always recommend that. But this one here, if you say show one section per page, that eliminates the scroll of death, but also presents the landing page quite nicely as well. So as we go back to the course there, you'll see the introduction. As I said, we always stick the introduction as section 0, which is part of the header of the course. It's not really one of the real sections. But when we come to the real sections, what you'll see here is that it's got the section header, the section name, and then the brief description, the next section name, brief description, and so forth. So it's quite tidy. And then as you click on that course, it then will display just that particular section itself on its own. So even the header comes up, but down here, there's the feedback, and there's the activities, and it's got navigation to and from, so you can go backwards and forwards on that particular section. Which is quite good. The good thing about that option is that it does remove that scroll of death if you don't need to see it. So let me just jump back into the course. Actually, I'll start while I've got coverage. I'll just quickly go through the next section. The next one is called single activity. Single activity is a format that allows you to select only one activity for that particular course. Typically, people use it for a SCORM activity, or sometimes it's a quiz, or it can be anything actually. But what you'll notice is that it bypasses the the introduction to the course, so you can't actually see an introduction here, and it goes directly, in this case, my single activity was for a SCORM, and it's gone directly to the SCORM and it says, look, get into the course now, get into the SCORM now. So it's basically avoided that intermediate step. So from when they click on the course name, they go straight to the activity, and that could be a quiz or a forum or whatever the case may be. So that's the single activity. It's quite limited in what it can do, but as I say, very useful is if your course is only based on one activity. That's probably why they brought it out. And there's not that much settings on the single activity. If we go and look at the settings for that, scrolling down, course format, you'll see there it just says single activity, and it says what type of activity is it, and you've got lesson page, blah blah blah, all the different types of activities that Moodle can handle. So that's the single activity. The next standard one that comes in Moodle is the weekly format, and the weekly format basically says when you set it up, it asks you for. Well, I'll go to the setup actually. Sample weekly setup. It's a bit slow this afternoon, or the evening. It's evening here. Now, we've selected the format as being weekly. We've selected 4 weeks, and again, it's got those 2 additional properties, which were the same as the topics one, which I mentioned before. Now, what it does here, it goes up and it gets the start date of the course, and it makes the first section from the 1st of February to the 7th of February. The next section will be the 8th of February. The next section will be the 15th of February, etc. So it uses the start date and names those things. Now, some of the shortcomings of that, I suppose, that I found was that the naming convention removed my section name. For example, the first section, by default, Moodle will say 1st of Feb to the 7th of Feb because that's the first week. But so then I had to then type in my company induction reading material after that. And it looked kind of dumb, I thought, that I had to do that. But if you didn't type that in, it would just be called the 1st of February. I suppose for some courses where the title of the section is not important, that's okay. But in this particular instance, it was kind of important for our clients. So we did one there. And then what I decided to do was to go and edit the name and actually combine both the date and the name of the section together. Now, unfortunately, you edit it, but and the other option is you can remove the date altogether. Why would you if you're using the weekly format? And just call it the name of the section itself. So a couple of options available to you. The weekly format is really good if you're running a course week by week, obviously, and it takes into account all those weeks, especially if you're putting like 52 weeks or 50 weeks of the year. It would handle all that for you and organise that quite nicely too. And there's a bunch of calendar things that take into effect as well. So, and the final standard format that comes with Moodle is the social format, which is basically the same as the single activity format, except it works for forums. So much the same. When you click into it, you don't get the heading as such, and it just dives you straight into the activity. In this case, you can start a new discussion topic, or you can scroll down and you can edit or discuss this particular topic. It's just a minion there. So as I say, that one there, I've never used it. The social format, social topic. And then now we move into the third-party ones. The grid view, which will go in there, it basically takes the 4 sections that I had. Remember, I've got my introduction section and my 4 sections, and it places the 4 sections in a grid, and you can have it 3x3, 4x4, etc., etc. If I had a bigger screen, it would spread across. So if I shrink that, I think it will. Yeah, there it goes. It goes back in there as 4, and so this is quite a useful way of doing it, but more importantly, it displays the content as a hover screen. For example, if I pick this one here, you'll see it displays that section just hovering above the top, and you've got navigation buttons to the left and to the right to take us to the previous and next sections. Now, this works really well. I like it when the sections don't extend beyond the screen. For example, that one there just comes up to the bottom of the screen. Therefore, you avoid having to do the scrolling up and down, even when you're having on this hovering section. Like this one here forces us to scroll down a little bit. But this is quite a good one. I've seen this implemented in a number of sites, and also it's great if you've got lots and lots of topics, lots of sections, sorry, in your course, because you can quickly summarize. You see that I've got 4 there, so I can very quickly have a screen of say 12 or 16 of them, and you can read most of them there. There's a number of format options available, what color. Now, the client that we were working with predominantly works in red, so we had to go and get some red images for them. But you can do whatever you like, and you can also change the size. At the moment, I think we'd said these images are 3 by 3, but you could have 3 by 2, so they become a bit more rectangular, or 3 by 1, or there's options. And then the blocks itself take on the name of the section, so whatever the section name was called is what the top of the mark called up here. And as I say, as you click on them, we had one hospital. I noticed that what they had done is they'd had the 4 sections, but they applied those 4 sections throughout their entire organisation, because typically there was a section for reading, there was a section for doing a question, there was a section for doing a feedback, and then printing out a certificate, very similar to this. So they had standardised all their courses to look very similar. Their introductions would be a little bit different, but then the beauty of that is that the nurses would come into a particular course and they would always be familiar with that template that they were using, so that they could go from course to course and not have to worry about reading a different template and not understanding how that course is laid out. So this one's quite a popular one there. I'll quickly go into the settings page for you. And the settings is quite extensive. Again, you've got the grid view, you've got 4, and you've got those 2, and then from there you've got things like how big you want the images, what's the size you want the images, and then you've got a whole swag of colours that you can set for borders and backgrounds and radius, and what happens when it's selected, what happens when it's not selected. So you can have a lot of fun playing around with these different settings here. So unfortunately, the ones that we had played with for our client was kind of boring, but that's what the client wanted. So they want these kind of colours there. The next one we'll move on to now is the one topic format. We'll quickly jump into that. And with the one topic format, what happened there, sorry, I'm just bringing up some screens. With the one topic format, what we decided to do was to take out section 0 is like the header section, which is normally hidden, but you can use it. Section 0 was where we had the welcome message and the welcome YouTube. But what we did here is we took section 1 out and actually created 5 sections in this particular course and made the first section the welcome section so that it would appear in line with the other tabs. And so what happens is, in this particular format, each section is represented as a tab up the top. The theme here doesn't probably display the tab as nicely as it could, but as we click on it, it will display a tab for that specific section. And if you scroll down the bottom, once again, you've got navigations to and from. So if you did have a very large section, you could navigate, and you're at the bottom of it, you can quite easily navigate to the next section because there's some navigation provided for you. This is quite a good way of doing it. Again, you need to probably consider the names of your sections here, because if like ours are quite long, I suppose if you had shorter names, they may be better. And again, they just keep going line after line after line if you wanted to go down the page for that. Any special considerations on? Let me just have a look. Just reading my notes. So that's the one topic section. As I said, I did have some interesting outcomes when I tried to put the header section, I mean the welcome section, outside the one topic. It behaved badly, so that's why we had to incorporate it in here instead. But you can play around with it. There is an option to allow the section 0 to be displayed here, but it just didn't work when we tried it. So it was quite easy just to move it in. And if we want to go to the settings for that one topic, we can see that, as you can see, I've got 5 sections instead of 4, still got the hidden, and it's got hide the tab bar. You can hide the tab bar if you wanted to, just navigate with the navigations at the bottom. And there's a couple of other settings there that you can play with. But more importantly was the section 0 can appear before the tab. We opted not to do that because it actually pushed the tab down, and so it didn't work. But you can put that if your section 1 was a smaller section 0, your headers or your welcome section was smaller, you could probably get away with something there. Okay, moving along, we have the collapsible topics. Now this is probably one of my favourite ones. Looking at the course, you see the welcome, and then you see the 4 sections. Now, 4 sections are displayed this way because of my previous demonstration. Let me change it again. I'm going into the settings for it. One of the things I was demonstrating, got to return it back. Columns 2, I'm going to say columns 1. So you can have multiple columns in there, and I'll come back and demonstrate that again in a second. So basically your welcome section followed by close all, each of the sections. And again, you've got lots of settings to set the color, what color do you have when the mouse is over, when the mouse is not over. And as I said, this client loved red, so we had to do everything red. I like this because you can collapse it, you can have a look at it. If you don't want to see that one anymore, you can bring it back up. If you want to have a quick peek at what's the next section, but not go there, you can have a quick look and then click and bring it back again. So again, this still kind of allows for the scroll of death if you want it, but I suppose horses for courses, as they say. It's quite a neat way of doing it. You've got open all and close all as well, so if you want to quickly summarize it. And yeah, it's quite a nice one. And it works really well, as you can see with the colors. It identifies the sections quite convincingly. You don't have the summary of those sections, just the section names, but in some instances that may be something that you may want in your course. Going to the settings for this quickly. Again, we've got collapsed topics. 4 sections are hidden, not hidden. Display instructions. There's some instructions that float around there. The structure is topics. Now, again, the 2 column. I'll put the 2 columns back, and you'll see how that works. And some other center things. And then you've got the colors that you want for when you're selected and not selected, etc. So we'll just save that. I'm not sure why someone would want to display their content in 2 columns. I don't know. Maybe they do. But that's the summary of the sections there. But if you said, open all, the contents would appear down the page like that. So it's like reading a newspaper, really. But it lines up beautifully. See that they lined up as two side by side. First one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one. So it's not down the pages, left and right, left and right. So that may be something that someone may want to consider. But yeah, that's an interesting format indeed. I like that one. The flexible format is a format good if you're wanting to organize your content, have it very well organized. And so I took liberties on this particular course. Now with this format, the initial landing page of the course shows again just the section name and the summary, so you can see what each section is. But it's only as you click on the section that the form redisplays, and you see the welcome message is now gone, and it displays the contents of that particular section. It's got a navigation back button to take you back to the landing page if you want to. It doesn't have one to take you to the next page, which is interesting. But what you can do here is you can have, that's a section. I've now got a subsection, and I purposely broke this section up into a subsection. So in here, if you wanted to then have a subsection, so they just see what they had to do and then go to the related documents, they click on that, and then the form is redisplayed to just display the related documents subsection. And again, I've got a subsection, which is even further. And if I click into that, you'll see that the content, so the content is, you can really manage what sections of the content the user can see. And if you want to use this concept of sections, subsections, etc. And I don't know how far it goes down, but I'm sure it goes down a fair bit. And you can see that the breadcrumb outlines where we've come from. We've gone from reading material to related documents to advanced reading, and we're now sitting in advanced reading. And going back up, it only takes you back up to the previous step. So it'll take me back to related documents. But again, you can navigate via the breadcrumbs. This is really good, I suppose, if you really need to make a definition of your content in specific sections. Perhaps you might have your course broken down into large sections and then smaller subsections and then smaller subsections in that. As opposed to having the scroll of death, you can now allow the student to navigate through section at a time. Again, that's quite a good one. One of the things I would have liked would have been a next button somewhere. Maybe there is. I haven't seen it. To go to the next section once you're in it, because otherwise, if you've gone down the sections, you have to go back up to then go to the next section. Or you can just click the breadcrumb. Obviously, that'll take you to the top section. Click the course, sorry. So that's the first section, and back to the course. Yep, that's the course where we've now got the next section. Some settings here. I don't think there was much settings on this one. Just have a quick look. No, it was only the one selection, which is very minimalistic. And the final one, which is quite a new one. I don't know how long this has been out, but I've only been recently introduced to it. It's called the buttons, and it allows you to display the section in the form of buttons. Now, it's quite light on in regards to documentation, or not documentation, in instruction, I suppose. So I had to put here, click on the buttons below to navigate to the course content. Otherwise, people may or may not understand what these things are, or may see it. You've got the option of putting, it's quite good actually, it gives you lots of flexibilities. You can put numbers, you can put Roman numerals, you can put letters, you can put headings in front of each of the numbers, or you can put, words like these words here, like call it reading, body, and then end. Now, if you make the numbers sequential, this one would have been 1, that one would have been 2, that one would have been 3, and that one would have been 4. If you make it non-sequential, whenever you have a name, it starts off with 1, and then the next name, then that starts off with 1. I've seen some samples of this where the sections are broken up into groups of sections. For example, here is the introduction, followed by steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the body, followed by steps 1, 2, 3 of the end. So again, if it allows you to group your sections together. In regards to navigating, when you click on it, it just displays the section quite quickly at the bottom, which is great. So I think that's quite good. And there is no navigation at the bottom to the next section. You have to go back up to the top again to click onto the next one. That's the button. Now, what I might do is I might go back to the slides now and just show you some of those slides that I had, because I took my chance with the screen sharing so that it would work, just in case it failed. So back to the slides, quickly going through the course single activity one, single activity, the weekly format. Again, that's to do with the headings, how you can have different headings for it if you have the time to type in your own headings. The social format, which is basically a single. The grid format, again, it was lots of settings to set and play with, and what the grid looks like. And the grid I thought was quite stylish in the way it displays this floating content box there and allows navigation with the arrows. That's then the one topic section, which was basically the summary of this, and then we've got the collapsible topics, which is that summary there. That's a good view of the different ones. The flexible section, see, they all seem to have some pluses and minuses. I like the feature here of the flexible section in that you just see a summary of each of the sections, which I thought was quite good. You don't really want to get into the content, and then when you clicked on that, it would just display that one content in itself. And remember, with the flexible section was the one that allowed you to have sections within sections within sections, which is quite a novel thing, if that works for your course. Again, that's an example of a section within a section. More flexible sections. Then the buttons, this is the screen I was trying to get to. You can just display the sections without any text notation. You can just call it 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, or Roman numerals, whatever you like. You can break it up into a description per section if you wanted to, or you could group your sections together like I've done here, which says reading and quiz 1 and 2, and feedback and certificate 3 and 4. There's also an option where you can say each section you go 1 and 2, and then the next section starts at 1 and 2 as well. So they always start with 1 per section. So there's some settings that you can play with. And that was quite novel as well. Okay, how are we all going? I should read the comments in here. Any good comments? One topic doesn't simply translate to button format. Okay, not understanding that. If you do have any questions, by all means ask away. Now, I think we might have a little bit of time to quickly run through the installing of a course format, which I will do now actually, if my screen sharing is still working. Screen sharing has closed automatically, unexpectedly. I'll just do that again. Okay, we have 5 minutes, so that's great. Any questions while I wait for the screen to pop back up again? Is that informative for people out there? Super duper. Okay, yeah, it's somewhat hard to try and show you all the features in a very short period of time and jump to the settings page. I suppose the settings page also kind of helps because some of it involves you having to play around with the sections, and as I say, we've played a little bit with our sections to make them, what we thought would work didn't work, so we had to change it. Anyway, in regards to getting that, so you just type in Moodle course format. That should just take us somewhere. Moodle plugin directory, course formats. Okay, so we've got some course formats there. Now, one that I can download is, I think it's called, sorry, I'm just going to find it. I downloaded it earlier today anyway, so I might just go, it's called Menu Topics. That's it there. Now, when you click on the actual format that you're wanting, normally you'd expect to have a download button in the middle of the page here, but you notice this one does not have. What you need to do is go to the right-hand side. It says Your Moodle Version, and select your Moodle version. Now, if I select 3.2 and say Go, nothing happens. Oh no, it's still spinning. Nothing does happen. If I select 3.1, this is a little bit of a bug, perhaps. You'll see for 3.1 I've got the download button, but it says that it's for versions 3.1 and 3.2. So, interesting. And then you just click the download. From there, you would then go back to your Moodle site. If you're an administrator, you should have the privileges to go into Site Administration, Plugins, and again, I've got a screen capture with these instructions on there. Work. Plugins, install plugins. Wait for the screen to pop up, and it normally comes as a zip file, and then choose a file, upload file, browse. Downloads. There it is. That's the format. That's the file that was downloaded earlier today. Upload that, and of course you do need the correct privileges to do this. Otherwise, you can get your administrator to do it. Install the plugin from the zip file is what the button asks me to do. And it says validation successful, installing can continue, and down the very bottom here you've got upgrade Moodle database now. So obviously it's writing things to the Moodle database to accept this plugin. And I should have showed you before, but trust me when I say that that option was not there before, but it will be there now. Struggling tonight. There we go. Success. Always a good message to have. Continue. Let me get my menu back. There we go. So if I go to patient, just go to the first one, scroll down. Those formats. You'll see there's the menu topic format appearing there. And I don't know anything about the menu topic format, but that's it there. All right, so I shall go back and pause that. Okay, so as I draw to a close, as I said, the instructions are there, what I've just gone through, which you can refer to the slides later. The demo site that I've been using is dom.moodlesite.pukunui.net. The username is student, and the password is capital student #123. And you're more than welcome to go in there and have a look and see the variations between the themes. I don't think you will have access to modify the settings, unfortunately, but I'll try and return everything back to the standard settings prior to this. But you're more than welcome to go in there and have a look. And again, it's horses for courses. I'm sure that for some people you might have seen some courses that really excite you and some that didn't do much for you at all. Any specific questions I can answer before your next session starts? You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm just going to jump in here and say thank you, Dom, so much for giving us your time on this. It was really helpful. Obviously, from the comments, we can see a lot of people got stuff from that and certainly new things that they can. Don't forget, if you have more questions for Dom later, that you can always go onto the forums for each of the sessions and have a chat with him then. Thanks, Dom.
Yes, no worries. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you making the time.